Good evening, guys. Thanks for tuning in again. This is the Glacial Shield podcast. I'm your co-host Aegis, and I'm joined today by Winter. So we're going to be finishing part two of our discussion today about the Disturbed album Indestructible from 2008. We're also releasing this during the week of Bell Let's Talk, which is on January 28th, but we're kind of making a whole week of it to, promote and support those that are in need. Like we mentioned in the last video, the Canadian suicide hotline is 1-833-456-4566. And for the States, it's 1-800-273-8255. And briefly, we'll just say that if you're in need of assistance or somebody to talk to, those lines are open and available for you if you're in a dark place. I think with that, Winter, do you want to just dive into the album?
Yep, so we're going to hop into song 7, which is where we stopped last time. It's called Enough. And at face value, this song is very straightforward. It's a plea from a soldier or a supporter of a soldier to people in power about how soldiers are mistreated. It talks about how the soldiers are broken down, reformed into what they need to be, and then sent out on the front lines to do whatever they have to do. That's very obvious in quotes like, when your soul is frozen, is that enough? Take their hope away, take their life away, leave them nothing left inside. And I think overall, this song can be taken as a bit more vague or a bit more, I guess, theoretical about society in general and people in power. If you notice throughout the song, if you've heard the song, we should say that now. If you have not heard these songs and you're listening to this podcast, we would encourage you to go listen to the album before you hear us debate what the point of the songs are. It'd probably help a lot in understanding. But during this song, you hear somebody whispering in the background just a few seconds before the main lyrics are said. You'll hear those lyrics being spoken. And I take that as somebody who is powerful or in control is telling the singer what to say. So by listening to it that way, I almost think the song could be restructured and heard from the point of view of someone who is powerful, giving a justification of what they're doing, with the chorus being almost like a plea of, is what I've sacrificed not enough? Because throughout the song, you hear lines in the verses that are like, when they're broken and they've lost everything, they're so much easier to lead. When they're haunted, deny everything, controlling in the suffering. In other words, someone in power has to be there to lead people. And to do that, this person believes you need to break people down, you need to lay away them, and you need to take away their hope so that they're basically drones. But in the chorus, if you listen to the song this way, and I know this is not the main interpretation or what the band has said, if you listen to the chorus, it's almost like the powerful person is saying, when your own have died, when there's no more pride, when your soul is frozen, is that enough? When your heart is broken 1,000 times with every moment, is that enough? In other words, they've sent their own to die. They've lost all of their pride. They've crossed every line that they could possibly cross in order to maintain their power and to maintain control. And their soul is either perceived as frozen or it actually is frozen from their actions. And they're asking, have I given enough? Have I done enough? Am I powerful enough, or have I led well enough for this to be worth it? And I like to interpret it this way because I still think, even though this song is tearing down the rich and the powerful, it still ties back to the first song in the album of, even rich and powerful people are presenting a front to all of society. Their constant confidence, their constant will to move forward is very often a facade. It's very often a front that's been built over years of learning and over years of, I don't want to say manipulation, because not everyone is powerful as manipulative, but learning how to do what they need to do to lead and also stay in power. And I think that's interesting, because I'm sure people who are in power, at least some of them or a lot of them, have trouble going to bed at night. And when it's all over, they probably do have a lot of guilt over the things they chose to do. And then when you're leading something like a country, not every choice you make is going to be a good choice, and not every choice you make is going to be the happy choice or the choice that makes everybody feel good. Because sometimes when you lead, that isn't what is necessary. And I'm sure that can be very damaging for someone's soul. What do you think, Aegis?
It's funny because when I first listened to the song and like read the lyrics more in depth, I saw it more from like the society at large and the little guy as opposed to like seeing it from the side of the government and the higher ups. And listening to you explain it, I can definitely see that. And you know, when I read this song, I'll read you a just a brief snippet. Take their hope away, take their life away, feeling nothing left inside. One potential like insight into the heart of this song, I think, is it's almost like it's like a slight reference to the Holocaust or some kind of like major like massacre event like that, where lots of people, big swaths of populations are being wiped out. Like they're in like these camps. We all know what the Holocaust is about, but you're in these camps, and uh, if you're a prisoner there, you know there's little to no hope of getting out. And like it's during World War II. You know, if you start to dive into the chorus, when your own have died, there's no more pride. When your soul is frozen, it's had enough. That could even be talking about like the German allies, like when your own have died and there's no more pride. Like you have to think some of the soldiers might be questioning what they're doing and even questioning legitimately or if it's even right to do at all. But it's definitely got a strong sense of keeping society in check and towing like the normal line. But yeah, I think when you were talking about like the government and bigwigs and rich people putting on like a facade, even if they don't try, I think there's also just that constant underpinning manipulation. You look at the presidency in the states and people who supported both sides, and there's always going to be a little bit of delusion and people who are either going to be completely supportive of their team or who they're going to vote for undoubtedly, and that's probably them getting kept down and kept in check. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and I can see that. I mean, that this song is political. There's no way to avoid it. I think politics are a tough conversation these days. That's something that society in general has gotten worse at, not better at. We are very bad at discussing things we disagree about without taking offense from the other person not fully agreeing with you. I've seen it cause a lot of stress for people in my life. I've seen people have to get off social media. I've seen people stop talking to people they once respected. And I think that can take a mental toll on people. Talking about the divisiveness going on in the United States right now is a good example. There's a lot of tension on both sides, and it comes down to society has to remember in all scenarios you can talk about something without hating the other person. But I don't want to get too far down the politics train. I do want to bring it back to the actual song.
Yeah,
One
just
thing I
just
wanted to
the
point
point.
out, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Aegis, was the final bridge going into the third verse. Because this part says, haven't they suffered enough now? Haven't they suffered enough now? The damage is more than they can bear. Haven't they suffered enough now? The reason why I didn't take this when I first heard the song as being someone speaking to a person in power is because the last line switches over to the damage is more than I can bear.
Hold up.
And it says I. So I see this as the person's conscience. Um, and I did want to touch on that because even though it does switch over to more your point of view, did they even have a reason why countless sons and daughters had to die? Can you even comprehend the pain? That's very much third person.
Yeah.
But to me, this bridge about asking if they've suffered enough and if they've taken more damage they can bear, and then it says there's more damage than I can bear, I take that as someone's conscience getting the best of them. And I guess I would say to anyone in power, I don't envy you. I don't I never wanted to be the person in power in these kind of situations because I know not every choice being made is going to leave you feeling like a good person, because to lead properly, you can't fully be a good person. But if you ever get to this level of power, when your conscience starts not letting you ever go to sleep, that might be a sign that you should look at what you're doing and maybe question if you've gone too far about things. And if you can't look at yourself in the mirror because of what you've done, maybe it's time to take a step back and modify what you're doing. Now, this song, again, I still think it ties into the overall topic of depression. Ironically enough, I interpret it as the depression of someone who's rich and powerful, who basically can't deal with their own conscience. But I think the song is difficult to talk about from a depression point of view because it is about keeping other people down, but it's not from, in my interpretation, that perspective of the person who's being kept down. But if it is about the person being kept down, I guess part of the point is if things like politics and things like war start to depress you, sometimes it's just best to turn off the TV. You know, if the media and the news is getting to you, put it away for a bit. The world isn't going to stop tomorrow. And for your own mental health, take a break. Do you agree with that, Aegis?
Yeah, I think that can be pretty much said not just about war, but even like we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Like, uh, we've gone through isolation, whether it be like different phases, we've gone through different waves of the pandemic, and I think people are seeing that it's actually taking a large toll on their, mental health too. So just seeing like if you're somebody that's always in the news and you're seeing just like lots of COVID cases, this is especially prominent in the states, like lots of COVID cases in your states or in your city, and the situation is not getting any better. That can be like largely like impacting like your well-being, right? And it just can really bring you down. I know I went through a little bit of a bit of bit of troubles last year during the middle of the pandemic. That and also, I think winter depression didn't help out there, but it was really hard to get a lot of energy when, things are so doom and gloom and you're not able to see people that you want to see and do things you want to do. Tough times.
Yeah, I would agree. Right now is certainly a difficult time. It seems like you can't, well, step outside without hearing bad news. That was a dark joke. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, it seems like you can't do anything without finding out bad stuff these days. And I'll admit, I took, I would say, about a 3 month break from looking at the news. And even now, today, I'm usually a few days behind what's happening just because I had stuff going on in my life. I was already stressed out enough. And of course, I keep up with things like COVID and what the rules are with COVID. But I couldn't keep reading the news every day and all the bad things that were happening. It wasn't my life. It wasn't things that genuinely affected my life in the short term to the point where it was healthy for me to keep watching it and keep bringing down my life. Um, and I just found in every scenario you looked at, things were just going wrong. So I eventually, I encourage people to take a step back and focus on your own life if you need it, especially when you're already stressed out. The news these days, it's almost like it's intentionally drumming up fear. I'm not going to accuse anyone of that, but it's gotten to the point where it's hard to listen to.
Yep,
Um,
agreed.
but I think we've spiraled enough on this song that's not about the news and the media. Maybe we should move on to the next topic, which is the curse.
The
And
Curse.
I believe this is song 8 of the album.
You'd be right.
Now, I can kick this one off. I think you kicked off the last one, didn't you?
I don't remember. I've got a memory like a goldfish, so feel free to kick it off.
All right. Well, I take this song as someone who is working hard in their life, is trying to do right, is trying to do successful things, be it in their work, maybe be it in relationships, maybe in the case of David Draymond doing music. And no matter what they do, they wind up back where they started. In other words, it's the curse of bad luck. Things keep failing. Whenever the situation starts to get better, it collapses, and he winds up back in the same spot he was. Um, I think all of us go through phases in our life where we feel like that. And I think it's predominantly because humans have an innate desire to progress. And therefore, we have a tendency to look at failures with much larger scopes than we tend to look at our own successes. Um, so I want to get into that a bit as part of my discussion of this song. But Aegis, first, I want to open it up to let you tell me what you think this song is about.
Okay, so I think you know. the curse. It can be taken from your point of view where the person is trying to do better, but it feels like everything just goes wrong for them. Like too dark to forgive. I can't seem to do anything right. When I try to rebuild, I see my humble shelter just fall to the ground again. Like even if they try to do good and do better, it just falls flat in the face and just doesn't work for them. I think it also could be taken that, it's a person, whether it be in a relationship or he's flying solo, but he leaves almost like a wake of destruction wherever he goes. He's not a good guy in spite of his actions trying to be better. Uh, and despite how difficult his life has been, he's refusing to surrender. He doesn't want to give in. He wants to try and be better as a better person. Uh, but he also sees that this destruction is starting to kind of like define him and who he is. And it's hard to change who we are shaping into if the process has already begun.
Yeah. And I do think you're right about that. I like that you brought up that this song, unlike a lot of songs on this album, does have a touch of hope in it. And that's a good thing to me. This is a dark song, but it does say that the person's never going to surrender. They're never going to give up. I think that's why I might prefer We Are Not Your Kind to this album, because even though We Are Not Your Kind goes to much darker places, it also offers up that moment of hope and aid to the viewer more frequently than this album does. I just wanted to say, though, that there is a line about being the object of an evil eye. And an evil eye is a very old phrase that basically means you're casting bad luck, harm, or suffering onto someone. So I don't think either of us is misinterpreting the song. I think it's a guy who feels like like literally it might be he feels like God is smiting him for whatever reason and not letting anything go well. I think Aegis, maybe we should talk about the fact that almost everyone feels this at some point. They feel like someone's looking down on them and laughing. Do you think that's a good point for us to kind of touch on for a minute and talk about?
Uh, 100%. Yeah, of course. It's almost like you're followed like a little like dark stormy cloud. Like there's always bad that's associated with you, and you can be doing things right for a little while, and you can seem like you've gotten away from the dark cloud, and lo and behold, something bad happens, and it just kind of tears the world asunder and makes you really regret like thinking that way, and maybe think there's almost no hope to what you're trying to do and be better.
Right. And for people who are experiencing this, maybe we should talk. I mean, we're no experts in psychology, but I mean, I've read a little bit about it for my own sake. Human minds like to look for things like patterns. Say you notice a song one day, all of a sudden you're going to notice that song every time it plays. I heard that being talked about on, unfortunately, I can't quote the YouTube channel, but I heard it on a YouTube channel the other day, and it's almost like this. If you are looking for the negatives, you're going to find them. And if you become focused on every negative in your life, that's all you're going to see. And I think that is partially human nature. Back in the hunter gatherer days, you couldn't feel happy and like you're comfortable as you are, because every day, if you did not keep challenging yourself and looking at the situation and trying to find out where it needs to be improved, you were probably going to die. So I want to encourage anyone who has this dark cloud following them all the time. I'm not going to tell you to alter your mind, but I am going to say take a moment to look at everything that's happening in your life and try to acknowledge the things that you take for granted, because the things that you most frequently take for granted are the things that are your successes, because they're there, they're happening, you're used to it, and it's having a positive benefit in your life, but you see it as the norm because that's what psychology wants you to do. Aegis, do you agree with me on that, or do you disagree?
Totally agree. You also touched on what I think you were talking about was like something about like our primitive nature.
Yep.
Like even like let's take for instance like our jobs. Like our jobs are largely desk work, but we
Yep.
evolved from being like mobile creatures to hunt and gather and forage and like be mobile and be always on the move. And yet here we are now doing a lot of sitting throughout our day. Like it's even funny you think about stuff like that, like weight gain. You know, we're supposed to be moving, And when we're not moving, it's like, okay, I guess we're maybe hunkering down because it's cold and it's wintertime. We better fucking, put all this fat on us to keep us warm and keep us healthy and like fine for the winter. No, we're literally just changing our lifestyles, and it's not how we evolved to survive before. Just
No, and I agree.
we're very basic.
Yep. And at the end of the day, remember that. I know humans don't like to look at themselves as animals and they don't like to look at things as instinctual, but sometimes what you're feeling is caused by instinct or, things like instinct. I would say if you're in these situations where you don't feel successful or you feel uncomfortable with yourself, to just remind yourself that some of that is natural and that you have the brain power and you do have the intelligence to look at things differently than your brain is naturally trying to tell you to do. And I know it's not easy, believe me, and I believe Aegis as well. This is not us talking from a point of view of we don't know. I will admit, I have had bad times, and they've lasted for more than a few days in my life. It is really hard once you get into the pattern of negativity and once you put up all your walls to get out of it. But one of the first steps is acknowledging that not every part of your life is actually bad. Acknowledging the good people around you, acknowledging the things you enjoy. And say the first thing you can think of is you enjoy video games and you own an Xbox. Don't make that be, oh, I'm a loser. A lot of people enjoy Xbox. A lot of people see it as a way of talking to people. As an example, just don't turn the things you enjoy into negatives that are holding you back when you need the positives. Let yourself have the positives. If you need comfort food, even for a few days, now I'm not saying make yourself unhealthily, eat too much constantly, but if you need comfort food for an hour, there's a reason why they call it comfort food. It lets you feel a bit better. It lets you enjoy things. Take the time to enjoy things. Aegis, what do you think of that?
Uh, I think that there should always be a way for a person to escape from just the day to day. Like you said, for me, it's also gaming. And after a long day at work, it's always nice just, have a little bit of vegetation time just to kick back and not think about, work or, you know, things that are developing in my professional life or other things that might cause stress. Instead, it's just like, hey, I'm gonna kick back, play some PvP, and hopefully not get slapped. And if I get slapped, that's a whole other matter of stress, but it's different. It's just like it's frustration. But whether
Well,
it's that, whether it's music, whether it's reading, you need some kind of way to like recheck yourself before you re-wreck yourself.
yeah, yeah, that's one way to say it. I guess what we're trying to say is remember your life is not actually cursed, and try to move forward. And
And
to do that, try to be good to yourself.
and don't let those things, even if you're having a string of bad luck, don't let that define you as a person. That's easy to say, but I think we both, I think as you get older, you realize that people come from, I think everybody gets a little, maybe not damaged, that's a strong word, but we all go through our strifes. And it's, you should just, it's a growing point. Up to this point, you know, I've survived 100% of my hardest days. And that's something to keep in mind too, is there's good with the bad, and there's bad with the good. It's yin and yang. And even in the bad, there might be a little bit of learning. It's hard to see that, but once you get past it, you might realize that, hey, that dark patch, I know how to navigate it now. Whether it be a dark relationship where it's rough and it's toxic, or a shitty job that you don't like, or you've gained weight, or you're kind of feeling isolated from your friends and family, so on, so on, so on.
Yeah. Well, just remember, you're always on here with me, and you can call me anytime. All right. I think it's time to move on to a song that I personally want to talk about quite a bit. This is probably one of the top three songs on this album I was looking to speak to. But Aegis, it's your turn to go first, so I'm going to have to hold my tongue for a few more minutes.
Oh man, we're gonna get him quiet for a second, folks. Holy shit. Yes. Okay.
All right, go ahead.
So I think earlier we talked and you mentioned that this is kind of like the inverse or the opposite of another earlier song on the album. You, I think you said you saw it as Deceiver. I can see that, but I also see it as maybe Haunted. So where Haunted talked about the gentleman feeling that he didn't deserve love and he was the bad guy and he was trying to push the other person away. I think this is kind of like the opposite of that, where it's the person who is trying to, you know, present the other person with love and they're not, reciprocating or accepting it. And it's about that person, fighting through that and like navigating just how different of a situation that can be in. And they don't want to fight with this person not receiving their feelings and accepting them, but the circumstances bring it about, so it's kind of like necessary. But they're also too conflicted or too involved with the situation to simply walk away from it all or retaliate. So they just kind of focus on sustaining the fire within the person as long as they can. Another way you can kind of see it is that the person, whether it be a boy or girl, feels torn, like the title, inside between their feelings for the person and their rationality. So like they're saying that they don't care for the person, and the indecision is paralyzing. So like the song says, he's just gonna let it feel it, like feeling out and bleed it out until it fades away.
And I do agree with you that this song is about relationships. And to be 100% honest, the more you talk, the more I can read through it and see it from that perspective. And maybe it's because I'll say right now, this song is one of my personal songs, meaning I take a lot of personal impact out of this song. I see it not slightly differently, but I see it through a different image. And hey, it says the word image in the song. But I'm going to be honest. I've been touching on it a few times in this album that I have had time in my life, and Aegis, you did see some of it, where I let myself give in to my darker side, and that sounds so dramatic, but I gave in to the negative side of my personality as a wall or as a protection or just as, in some cases it was almost just for spite. You got so upset with what was going on around you that I didn't care if people saw me as a bad person. And this song touches on, in my opinion, the frailty of that. And in the very opening line, it says, I learned how to fall today. And I didn't think it would kill you. To settle a debt that I thought never would be paid. I found out I was wrong today. I was too weak to continue. One final defense to fall, but I'm still unbroken. So that opening verse to me says everything, and this whole song continues to say everything. But the way I see that verse is what I became kept me from breaking entirely. It got me through. It got me through. I don't want to go into too much detail. Aegis, you know some of the story behind where I was,
Yes,
but
sir.
but even Aegis, you only know probably the one side of it that you saw as part of the influence. Um, and this song covers the failure that comes from allowing yourself to become this person. I lost friends, and I lost good friends. They will never listen to this video. They will never hear me say to them, I'm still sorry to this day that I was not there for them when they needed me. Um, I was not there for them when they wanted me to be, and I was not there for them when I should have been. And that's why I find this song to be such a gray area. I don't know what I could have done differently because I was in such a bad mental space that when people came to me about their own problems, or even people just tried to be my friend, I couldn't do it in a lot of cases. And I still don't know to this day if I could do it. Even with the learning I took away from what I had done, this song has a line where it says, I knew there was a price to pay. I didn't think it would thrill you to witness the fallen one shattered and ashamed. No, I'm not the only one yearning to fulfill you, but I'm unwilling to risk it all because I'm still uncertain. Um, I lost a relationship, and again, I lost multiple friends. And one thing I used to pride myself on was how much I was there for the people around me. And again, the song says it. I knew there was going to be a price to putting up the walls that I had to put up, or I felt like I had to put up, but I did it anyway. And, some of the people who I let down, it angered them to the point where, they became happy when they saw my failures because it justified that they now saw me as a bad person and they weren't necessarily wrong. Um, so I don't know where I'm going with this, but I want anyone who believes it's a good idea to become the bad guy or to become darker to protect themselves to listen to the song. Because what it's saying, while it's basic, while it isn't a whole lot of verses, the point is very clear and it's very truthful. You will eventually make it through it, and you will never know whether or not what you did was right. And you will probably have to live with the regrets of what you did. And to this day, and again, I know this to anyone who doesn't know no one here listening knows me, but this will sound dramatic, but I am going to regret things that I did and said for the rest of my life. And there is no taking it back. It got me through what I needed to get through, but it's caused permanent damage for the rest of it. I know I just ran on a rant. You probably don't know what to say to it or want to say to it, but I'm gonna let you come back in.
Red at 7:08.
All
As in
right,
left
go
to
ahead.
read. No, well, I think at that time in your life, I think that's when I kind of met you, actually, right?
It's around then, and I would ask avoid talking any details, please. I really don't want that on the internet.
I'm not gonna say anything, but it's like I'm happy to have met you. We grew to be good buddies, and I think our journey has been pretty fun so far.
I would agree. And you were a new. You again, you didn't. You're right. You didn't come in at the beginning, even though maybe from your perspective you thought you did. And you certainly, because I moved away, you certainly weren't there at the end physically. But yes, you are a good example of someone that I didn't let you in fully. And I'm guessing at this point, that I didn't let you in fully and tell you everything. But yeah, I mean, you witnessed enough and you knew enough about one of the things that were causing my problems. And I'm emphasizing one of the things.
Yep.
Um, And yeah, you're a good example of I took a risk. I didn't want anyone in my life, let alone a stranger. Um, but I took a risk and you did help. You've always helped and you still help. And I think, as much as I do talk you up and I've told you before, I have a world of respect for you for what you did to me. Let's not, no,
Kinky.
no, no, nobody online believe Aegis did anything to me. We don't want that fan art someday.
Eyebrows
Um,
emoji.
Yeah. But the things you did for me meant a lot, and you've earned my respect going forward. Um, but it's a good point. You were not someone that, in the obvious point of view, should have been someone that I would turn to. But you proved yourself able to, and you proved yourself willing because I took a risk. And I encourage people, take a risk. People are better than you think they are. There are people who care enough to help. And no, they may not be able to pull you out of it entirely. A lot of it is going to be down to your own decisions and your own choice to get better. And I know again, it's hard to come up with words for this. I'm not saying it's easy to choose to just be better. I'm not saying that. It takes years. But choosing to find a path forward to grow, develop, and try to fix yourself the best you can. But having people there, and Aegis is not the only one, he's an example of one, but there were people I had to eventually reach out to. Unfortunately, during the same time, there were people who reached out to me, and I'm not going to get them back because I wasn't there for them. So this is a tough song for me, and it's tough for me to give an answer because I know we want to be positive in these scenarios and we want to talk about positive things, but you do have to strike a balance between helping yourself and helping other people. Closing yourself off entirely will make regrets, but at the end of the day, sometimes you do have to focus on you. And I don't even, I think that's probably a bad thing to be putting out to the world, but sometimes you do have to do what you have to do to get through.
You gotta look out for number one most a lot of times too, right? You gotta be
Right.
selfish in that regard sometimes.
Right. And, I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to other people. To me, this is why this is the opposite of deceiver. I know there's people who hate me for the choices I made back then, and they're not wrong. But and meaning I agree with them, but I have to forgive myself, and I have not fully yet. And again, I'm talking about this, so it makes it sound so simple, but I don't know that I ever will. But I do have to accept that the scenario caused me to become what I became, and I made the choices I made. I did my best to repair things where I could. It's not their fault that they chose not to accept those repairs, or they chose they had to cut me out of their life. But I also need to move on, and I can't let myself slip because other people are doing what they have to do to get on with their lives. Aegis, I think I'm ready to move on to the
I've
next
got
song.
one more little similarity here. So,
All right.
uh, it's gonna be compared to Star Wars. So, there's a comic out. I think there's a comic out released by Marvel a few years ago, and the Emperor is trying to get a new apprentice, and he's got all these baddies, and it gets down to these two people. You got Darth Vader, and you got random, I think, assassin or something, and they're using lightsabers, and the other person's like, "Why can't I beat you? I'm harnessing all of my hate, and I hate you so much." And then Darth Vader says, "No one hates me more than me," and all the bad that he's done still weighs on his mind, and that's how he's able to triumph. He hates himself the most, and that's how he's able to win. But that's a
See
pretty
that's
depressing
funny.
character.
See, that's hilarious, and I didn't know that was the thing. I've been, and you know this, I've been saying that for a long time. I used to say the reason it never bothered me that other people disliked me was that no one hated me more than I did. So maybe they stole that line from me. But also to the people listening, that's not a healthy train of thought. And I'm
Mm-mm.
telling you, when I used to say it, Aegis, I meant it. As much as I said it to be humorous, I meant that when I said it. And no, I didn't take it from Star Wars. I had no idea that Star Wars used that line. I'm going to go copyright strike Lucasfilm. But, you know, while it was true, that's not a healthy train of thought to have. You can't hate yourself. You can have regrets and you can try to do better, but hating yourself is never going to lead to anything beneficial. It's never going to help you grow. It's never going to help fix a situation.
Nope.
All right, I'm ready to move on to the next song. How about you?
I think we beat that one to death.
All right, let's talk
Uh,
about Criminal. Yep,
this whole
I
thing
shall go
is
first.
all this suffering, this conversation, right?
Yeah. Yep, pretty much.
Okay, you go
All right.
first, Chief.
All right. Criminal is a song that Aegis and I debated whether or not this is about a literal criminal. I think it might be. I would like to say I see most of the song as being a discussion about how your guilt can eat at you and make you feel worse than what you probably should. It literally has a line that it says, "It makes me feel like a criminal when I'm alone." Of course, everyone knows when you're alone and you're isolated, your thoughts tend to eat at you and make you overinflate every bad thing that's going on in your life. But I also think the song might be literal, because it does mention wanting to have their end quickened, which, from a general perspective of depression and sadness, is this person is potentially looking for punishment as this form of absolution. And I think later in the song, it really gets into that with lines about what power will enable me to make this decision. Despair has fallen over me. There's no way to escape the agony, so I'm embracing my own calamity to save myself once and for all. And then it goes into a bridge that says, "Now you want to know, you want to name, you want to call me Mother Blank. Now you want to know, you want to name, you want to say it doesn't matter." I believe this is someone who wants to be punished for whatever they've done, whether it's a crime or not. I can't say I necessarily disagree with the point of this song. You know, as much as forgiving yourself and moving on is a good thing, sometimes accepting that you deserve punishment and taking it with grace is the best way to free your mind from a situation. It's
Kinky.
absolution. Pardon?
Nothing. Continue.
It's absolution, and I don't like to get biblical. I'm not a religious person, but absolution is a real thing. People tend to like it when other people acknowledge that they've done something wrong once guilt's been building up inside of them. It allows them to vent, it allows them to say they're sorry, it allows them to move forward. And that comes back to the whole keeping things bottled up. If you feel guilty about something, you should apologize, again, to the best of your ability. But if you've done that and the person won't accept it, or the person cuts you out, that's when you need to go to someone like a therapist. If you've committed a real serious crime, it might be a good idea to turn yourself in. Sometimes that is the only way to allow your mind to start to mend. This song is about someone who has actually done something wrong, and we've all done something wrong in our lives. Some of us have done worse than others, but sometimes, yeah, admitting that you've done wrong and accepting whatever comes with admitting you've done wrong is the path forward. Aegis, what do you think?
Yeah. 1 second. Uh, yeah, there we go.
Rob?
My audio wasn't showing up for some reason. Uh, yeah, I think that. See, I think that I'm picturing this as from the POV of a criminal more than what it sounds like you are. So at the start of the song, it talks about it's. I think it's a narrator saying, "Malevolent criminal eye, motivation paints my mind," or I guess it's the person, like an internal monologue. Cross the invisible line, and you'll be paid in kind. Like it's either they've done the act of hurting somebody or killing somebody, or they are thinking about it. And the invisible line is once you cross it, there's no return. You're a criminal. You're a murderer. You're bad, and you'll probably deserve to be imprisoned for it. But when bad things, I think, over time happen to a person, you know, we've seen this time again in like society. If bad is done to a person, eventually it kind of warps their perception and they start to do bad and exert that bad onto the world. Whether it be like something simple, well, not simple, but something simple to understand, like, abuse at home leading to an abusive personality outside of the home, and like whether it be you bullying people at school or something like that, that's just one example of that being exerted. And I kind of agree, like, when you were talking before about like when you're alone for a long time, like that person, like when you're alone, you have a lot of time with your thoughts and they can fester. And if you've done bad and you're alone with those thoughts, they can make you act differently, act strangely, act you pretty whack, make you act pretty whack. If you look at the lyrics, a hunger coming over me as I learn to hide the agony, to make a final remedy, to close the door once and for all. The person wants to hide from the pain and figure out what actually happened to him. So, I mean, that could be possibly he's trying to build himself up to actually atone for what they've done, like the wrong, whether it be admitting the guilt and confessing to a priest or to like jury or a police officer. And I think this is kind of touched on later on in the song. You were saying like now you want to know, you want a name. Now you want to know, you want a name, you want a name, you want a place, you want a time. Just like give them the details about where the action was. And I think this is
Right.
actually link it back to the start. Criminal, the suffering. It makes me feel like a criminal or think like a criminal. Criminal. That's maybe what they are at the time, and the person they've hurt or killed or maimed, they're suffering beside them, and just that suffering there, it's really hammering home that they've done wrong or done evil.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more of a topic lately. The mental health of criminals and people in the justice system. It's a touchy subject that Aegis I don't think we should go into with a 10-foot pole.
We should steer
But
clear of Top Gun.
right, I agree. However, I just want to say it is something that should be discussed. Justice is justice. Torture in any form is not the right thing. Um, However, no, we shouldn't go into this in too much detail. I just wanted to touch on the very end of the song. Um, the final chorus and outro. is, in a world I don't want to know, with a message that I never want to send, to be freed from all of this, I need you to quicken my end. Don't tell me I cannot go with a wound that refuses to mend. Deliver me from all of this. I want you to quicken my end. Don't say that it isn't so. I'm on a path that you'll never comprehend. Set me free from all of this. I need you to quicken my end. So to me, that is absolution in a nutshell. Um, the person who's done wrong is also left with a wound, which is, again, how it's hard to talk about this song without talking about criminals or bad people, sometimes not, obviously not being as damaged as their victims, but suffering guilt. And PTSD is not the right word, but basically after whatever they've done is done, suffering guilt over it. So I like the line with a message that I never want to send, because I think that is what a lot of people who do one-time offenses feel like. They never saw themselves as that person until they did what they did. And they can never free their mind from that moment or that action or that day. And therefore they need the absolution of being punished. Even as maybe their loved ones are telling them, or the ones they care about are telling them, if you come forward, if you come clean, your life is going to be ruined or over. But it's a bitter road to absolution. And I am one of those people that I believe, if you have a guilty conscience, sometimes it is best to take your medicine for you and for the people you've done wrong.
Meet Eddie. You said guilty
Yeah.
conscience.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're referencing. Just because I choose not to acknowledge it doesn't mean I don't know what you're saying.
Okay,
Um,
just so we're clear.
all right. Let's talk about Divide. Do you want to lead this one?
Uh, yeah, sure. Um, I think the song literally is pretty on the nose about its meaning. Like, I think as society, we're starting to venture towards more of like a homogeny, whether it be, in culture or acceptance with culture or like not personality, but there's just a merging almost of some things, some traits that used to make us individual. But the song, it's really trying to hammer home that we should be individual, continue to be unique. Don't kind of like blend into society and do what everybody else does. Don't do the status quo. If you want to be different, be different. I think that's just what I saw. And it's not sarcastic at all. It's pretty simple.
Oh, I do think it's a very straightforward song. I do not really want to add to what you're saying, because I think you nailed it on the head. Although I do want to go maybe a little more further into at least one fairly big chunk of text. And I know I'm doing a lot of quoting this time. I don't know why I pulled the lyrics up in front of me, because now I'm going to start quoting things. And we both know how much I love to quote things. So the second verse into the pre-chorus is, I'm a little more provocative than you might need. It's your shock and then your horror on which I feed. So can you tell me what exactly does freedom mean when I'm not free to be as twisted as I want to be? I don't want to be another loser playing in this game. I'm trying to impress upon you we're not the same. My psychotic mentality is so unique. I'm one aggressive mother blank. Now, wouldn't you say? Now, I think this is an important conversation, please, because society, especially today, tells people who have a dark sense of humor or a sort of warped sense of humor that they're in the wrong to have that mentality or that thought process. And I want to push back on that, especially for the people listening who are made to feel bad about themselves for having those types of sense of humor. If you're not hurting anyone and you're not doing anything illegal, having a dark sense of humor, a morbid sense of humor, a twisted sense of humor, it if it's not for someone, they should leave you alone, not the other way around. You shouldn't have to censor yourself and mute yourself for other people. Um, and it's fine to not be the same, which is, I think, what this point of the song is about. Too many people these days are forced to mute themselves because what they want to say, even in jest, even in just discussion, is deemed unacceptable. Humans are not alike. They're not, none of us have the exact same thought process. We need to learn that if someone isn't breaking the law, if you disagree with them and you genuinely think they're wrong, you need to have a conversation with them and try to make them see your point without just flat out telling them they're a bad person or flat out telling them they're wrong, especially when it's something like comedy. Um, Trust me, you don't want to live in a world without comedy. Um, so I just want to talk on that, touch on that. I know we're running out of time, and I know this song isn't exactly a song that we should spend too much time on, but yeah, I mean, I can be pretty twisted, and I don't think I should be made to feel bad about that because I don't think I'm actually twisted would probably be the right way to phrase it. I'm a horror buff. I like heavy metal. Aegis, I know you do too. I have a dark sense of humor. I can cuss like a sailor, which you guys haven't heard because we're trying to be kid friendly. Um,
Well, kids
but
are watching this.
yes, kids are definitely watching this. No one's watching this. However, if someday, um, I guess what I'm saying is there's a difference between being a bad person and having an opinion, or even just having a sense of humor. Um, Society needs to get better. You can't you can't look at the news the way the world's going these days and think that the way we're going when it comes to how we deal with other human beings is healthy or good. I think it leads to a lot of mental health problems for people on every side when people are vilified. 50% of the population on either side hates them. Um, I think it's bad. And I think this song makes a very good point. It's not saying it's okay to be an actual bad guy, but it's saying it's okay to not be the same as the person beside you. Aegis, do you agree with that?
Totally. I mean, also dark humor. There's always a time and a place. Like at least for our professions, I don't know. That's always appropriate, but at the
No,
very least, sarcasm is always like a. It should always be accepted. Like I think
no,
sarcastic people are just fun people.
there's a time and there's a place for everything. And you're right. In your professional life, now again, we're talking about in day-to-day life. We're not talking about at work. We're not talking about when you're walking into a church. We're not talking about when you're with your grandmother. I'm just talking about general society telling you that because you're not like them, you're not acceptable. I think that's becoming more and more common, and I think that's unacceptable.
You know what's funny? I think of the meme where like the child tells a joke, the parents are horrified, and the grandparents are just cackling, laughing. I feel like my grandparents would have appreciated that. Yeah, the dark
Right.
humor.
So that's what I'm saying. And I know I went to humor, but I'm saying for any conversation, if you can't talk to someone with respect on the other side of the aisle of your opinion, maybe you're the one who should keep quiet until you learn how to be an adult about a conversation.
Yep.
And maybe that's a blunt thing to say, but if you can't debate someone and you can't be reasonable without falling into catcalling, name calling, and trying to make someone feel bad about themselves, maybe it's time for you to step back and look in the mirror. But with that being said, I think that song's pretty straightforward, and we have a whole 5 minutes left to move on to Facade, which I think I'm taking this one to start, aren't I?
Yeah, you can take this one. Have at her.
Okay, so for me, the song ties together the whole album. It is a story about a man looking into a relationship, seeing how badly a woman is being treated, and basically asking her, how long are you going to hold out before something bad happens? How long are you going to put on a face? How long are you going to lie to everybody and yourself about the situation? I think the song ties together the whole album. It is someone who's in a bad spot, it's someone who's put up a front to everyone around them, and even though some people are aware that there's an issue, they don't want to interfere because the person's too busy saying, I'm okay. Maybe they get aggressive about it when other people try to ask them about it. It ties back to that facade that you are indestructible. Nobody's indestructible. And sometimes when you try to force yourself through a situation by pure strength alone, with no help, no aid, you might wind up doing something worse than if you had just stepped away from the situation or seeked help when you need it. In this song, it is potentially murdering the boyfriend or husband. It never makes it quite clear who it is, but it's basically saying that this woman has been beaten, assaulted. She won't let her friends in. She won't go to the police. And eventually it's going to lead to her murdering him because she's eventually going to snap. It's going to come out. It's going to pop. The bottle is going to blow up. Um, and there's lines like, I know you bleed internally. How long until you walk away? How long will you try? And your facade can't disguise the fact that you're in misery, which I think this whole album is about. No matter how tough you try to act, you're never going to hide the fact that your pain is the cause of you doing that. And it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help the people around you to help you. Aegis, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you pretty explained it pretty much as I would have. Uh, I guess more generally, like just the facade, like the chick in the song, she's trying to keep a strong front, maybe not only for herself, but maybe she has children with this guy who's abusive, and she has to be strong for them. She has to present a strong motherly appearance, possibly to people that like society, to her family, friends, but eventually, like, you can't keep up that facade forever, which is kind of the tough thing because you can't lie about who you are and hide that forever because, like, someone's gonna eventually see that. Uh, I guess I can speak personally, like, a previous life, I had a facade up and just I tried to portray that things were all hunky dory and my personal life was fine. Clearly, it was not fine, but I mean, you work through it. I didn't have to take the extremes the chick in this song did, but you know, the easiest thing to do is if you're in a troubling situation, whether it's a relationship or just a tough time in life, or maybe even toxic family members or friends, you just gotta walk away. Just
I
distance
agree.
yourself.
I agree. Sometimes the answer is just walking away. It's not punishing the other person necessarily. It's not raining hate down on the other person. Sometimes it is just stepping away and saying, that's enough. I can't do this anymore.
I mean, if
And
you
that's for
leave,
any
you step back,
situation.
like you're taking the power away from them because who are they gonna like go after? They can't go after you anymore if you leave. Take all the measures you can, block them, just distance yourself so they just can leave you alone and take your
Exactly.
life back.
Right. And to anyone who's in this situation or situations like this, I'd encourage you to go to the police, go to your friends. There's no shame in being the victim. This can happen to anybody, male or female. If you are in a position where you're being abused, seek help. Do not hide it. Do not try to justify the person's actions. If they are hurting you in this sort of manner, they're doing it on purpose. And whether they need mental help or they need to go to jail is a different conversation. But you're not helping anyone, yourself, them included, by not seeking help and not stepping away when you need to. There are no excuses for being abusive. There are no excuses for hurting your significant other or your spouse or your kids. Aegis, on a slightly lighter note, although it's not much lighter, I do like how the song ends with broken down, hurt again, it never ends, and then the song immediately cycles back into Indestructible
Yep.
because it literally shows the cycle of this type of situation. You,
We mentioned it before. It's almost like not the 12 facets of depression, but it's 12 like maybe different feelings or acts that you put out there that just kind of revolve around the state of being of depression or helplessness. Like you
yeah,
try
and
to be indestructible or present a facade that makes you seem like you're indestructible. You're torn between a tough situation. You know, you're you're haunted by the past things that you've done that you believe you're solely accountable for, and you're completely wrong and undeserving of love.
yeah, and it can be an awful cycle, and that's what this song's ending presents. Everyone's life goes through cycles of ups and downs. You wind up feeling broken down. You wind up feeling hurt again. The truth is, it doesn't end. Your life is not always going to be positive. You are going to go back into bad scenarios. It's just trying to remember that the cycle isn't only negativity. There are good moments. In fact, realistically, the good moments probably outnumber the bad moments in your life. And if they aren't outnumbering them, that's probably the time to step away and try to find a different life. And it's okay to do that. Society and the world makes it feel like you need to stay as you are, how you are, and carry on what you're doing. But there is a point where you can just step away and say no more. And I do unfortunately believe I'm going to be talking about that in a lot more detail in my solo podcast about We Are Not Your Kind, because that album very much discusses stepping away, resetting, and refusing to carry on with the life that you've been leading. Aegis, you won't be joining me for that, but I do hope you listen to it, and I hope you're interested in the topic, because I probably will be going into it a lot more detail on my own.
Yeah, I'll give it a listen to it 100%. At the very least, while I'm editing it.
At the very least, you will have to listen to it once. Thank you. All right. So I think that's pretty much the end of our review. We're not going to go into the bonus tracks. We've already spent about 2 hours on this, even though we're both aware of the bonus tracks. For any actual Disturbed listeners out there,
I think there's two of them. There's Parasite and there's one other one.
I believe it's called Run.
Yeah, I knew it started with an R. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Run, Parasite, and then Midlife Crisis.
Oh, there's three. Okay.
Yeah, depending on which of the multiple editions these days of the albums that you buy. So, everybody, I will be back. Aegis is going to do something slightly different than me. He's going to be doing some gaming stuff that's going to come out the week after. You'll probably actually see some of it before the week of Bell Let's Talk, but you'll also be seeing it the week after, because we are going to focus on this next week. But we just want to say life can be tough. No one's life is a sparkling jewel. If that's the way they present it, that is a front. Even if their life is good, not every part of their life is good. And that's okay. And part of learning how to deal with these things is realizing everybody goes through it. It's not just you. The world doesn't hate you. Society doesn't hate you. Not everybody's your enemy. The cards are not stacked against you, and there's not some god smiting you every second of your day. Things happen. Things get bad. You need to work through it. You need to try to remember the good. And if you need to put up some barriers, that's okay. But try to not put up barriers that are big enough and solid enough that they will last forever, even when the good comes. Because that's the risk of putting up those barriers, is when the good thing shows up that can help lift you out of that scenario, you might let it pass you by. I will never say it's a good idea to continue to be naive in the world, but it's not a good idea to become jaded to the point where you see no good in the world. Aegis, do you have anything you wanted to say before we close it down for the night?
I think that if you're going through a tough time, it's always good to talk to somebody, but do it maybe when you're more of a level state of mind. It's not good just to talk to somebody right at the gate when your emotions are high and you could act out in a fit of rage and hurt the ones you care about, whether physically or emotionally, or push them away when they're trying to help you, because that's all your loved ones and your friends are trying to do. They just want the best for you, provided they're good people. But I think, and also being open to receiving the help and understand that you can get better and you will get past the bad times.
Absolutely. And remember, when you're at your most emotional is also potentially when you can be the most at risk. There are resources. We've listed a few of them at the start of the videos. There are many others. I know we only covered North America, but if you need help, get help. It may be as simple as put yourself in the ER. Go to a hospital and tell somebody you need help because you're having bad thoughts. They can help you. The police can help you. A therapist can help you. If you are not comfortable and you don't feel like you're in the mental state to go to your friends and family, seek help. Taking your own life is never worth it. Finishing things and never giving yourself the chance to have good moments ever again is not worth it. If you end things, you are taking away the opportunity to ever have good times again. And I can guarantee you, if you live out your natural life, you will have good times again. And even if you had only one, it's more than you're going to have than if you end your life. Please seek help if you need it. Aegis, do we want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on there, honestly, Winter.
All right, guys. Have a good night. We wish you all well.
Awesome, guys. See you later. Thanks for tuning in.